Okay. Hi, how are you? Good afternoon. This is Andrea Ayala speaking, and we are about to start our session about lesbian refugees that we are today commemorating and celebrating World Refugee Day. So to all the refugees that are planning to join us, feel welcome. And this will be a great session for us to speak not only from our personal experiences about our refugee story, but it will be also a great opportunity for us to know how we lesbian refugees resist and keep organizing while living a new life here in Europe. So I would like to start this session honoring the memory of Sarah Hegazi, who passed away sadly last weekend when we were starting the Refugee Week. So please, if we can have a moment to reflection and to honor her life, we will make a short presentation about her. So can we please have a clap, virtual clap for her life and her tribute? I think it's very important to celebrate her life. Well, in the light of what exactly what the quotes that we read from Sarah, we want to start our first round of questions to all our speakers. I will be stopping while I'm speaking because, as I said, Barbara will be translated into the Spanish part of the session. So please, Barbara, if you can translate. You have muted your mic.
Luego de ver el tributo a la compañera cuya vida perdimos el fin de semana pasado, al inicio de la celebración de nuestra Semana del Refugiado, vamos ahora un poco a reflexionar sobre algunos de los quotes que retomamos de sus posicionamientos. Es así que ahora vamos a dar inicio a la reflexión y a nuestro espacio, tratando de compartir un poco sobre nuestras vivencias como refugiadas.
Thank you, Barbara. So our first questions, it is for all you speakers that are here with us, which I will take a short time to introduce, or if you can do so yourself while answering the question, it would be great. You can introduce yourself. So the first thing we want to reflect on is about what does the term lesbian refugee signify to you?
La primera pregunta, que es para todas nuestras panelistas, me gustaría si ustedes pudieran introducirse, presentarse cada una de ustedes mientras dan respuesta a esta pregunta. La primera pregunta es, ¿qué significa ser una mujer lesbiana refugiada?
Great. Can we start with you, Shadi, that you're here right next to me in the screen? Thank you.
Iniciamos contigo, Shadi.
have to unmute your mic. Please remember to unmute.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to talk about my experience as a refugee here in Germany, and to talk about how we can organize, or I can tell from my experience. I worked for a long time in refugee field, and how we can organize the lesbian refugees, or somehow what are our challenges for organizing the lesbian community here in Europe. Do you want me to start with my own experience, or you want me to jump to the discussion and start with that?
We want to know, of course, a bit more of your experience, where you come from, but also, as I said, we want to reflect about what is the meaning for you for being a lesbian refugee. Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, I came here about 3 decades ago. It was 30 years ago. And at that time, for me, was to be lesbian was no question. I was not lesbian. I didn't know what lesbian is. I knew that something is wrong with me, and that was everything I knew and about my sexual orientation. I came to Germany illegally. I came from Pakistan, from the border from Iran to Pakistan with a fake passport, and with 12 men who organized this way and how we go there. So, and in Turkey, I had a really bad experience for 4 weeks under the control of this person. And there are a lot of dangerous situations for a woman, for a girl. I was 18 as I had to leave the country because of my political activities at that time. So as I came to, and I am one of the few examples that have from Iran who has the experience to be in Pakistan and to be in Turkey at the on the way, and then come to East Berlin at that time, and then again I was deported to the Turkey, and I had to try to come again. So as I was in Germany, I had no idea to go to the lesbian organization and lesbian groups or LGBTI groups. This is the most important thing I want to talk about, that because we think the lesbian people, they know it is an organization. The name is European Central blah blah, or is 6th rank, or is something like that. And we have to call them and they come and we organize them. This is not the case. Most of them, they don't know what is the word here. What is there any organization? Is there any person who is like them? Is there any person who can help them? We think that they have the information from internet. It's not the case in all the time. It's not the case. And I want to say that we have, for example, when it comes to the countries that they can ask for asylum, like Germany, Austria, Netherlands, or France, or everywhere in Europe, they come to a camp and live there for a long time, sometimes 3 years, 4 years. So the most important thing is to find them and to help them for their procedure for the asylum, because most of them will be rejected because they don't know how they should explain that they are lesbian. And they make a lot of mistakes because they try to say something that is acceptable, that is not about their sexual orientation. And then we come after all this procedure, and to make this mistake again to the correct form, to change it, is really hard. So, And as we know, I had a talk with one of the refugees in Berlin yesterday, and she said that she doesn't call herself lesbian because the people will look at her, and it's better to say she's a gay or to say that she's queer. I mean, we know how difficult it is these days to identify yourself as lesbian. So, and we have to try to strengthen this discourse about lesbian existence, about the problems they are challenging, and the challenges they have in they face in their life, and in the on the way to come to a safe country. So I want to say that the connection between the people who need our help and between the organization who help is not, it doesn't work. The connection is not there. We hear something about a group of refugees. We cannot identify really who is there as a lesbian. And I know that the language barrier is one of the most important problems when it comes to refugee work. But at the other side of this story is that we don't try to go to the center of the, how do you say, the at where everything happens. We look at that, but I don't think that really we have a discussion about the ways how we can find them out, how we can organize them, or the most important thing for a lesbian who is on the way to a safe country is not to be organized for being active for their rights. Is the most important thing is to survive, to be safe from rape, from all other violations that they experience on the way to a safe country. So I think we have to make more pressure on the governments here to take care of the people from LGBTI communities in the refugees groups, and to educate their personnel to be able to work with them, to deal with them. Because as we know, for example, when a woman, a girl from Syria, from Iran, from Afghanistan is a lesbian, for her it's really hard to talk with a man who is asking her about her sexual orientation or about her experience.
Yes,
so these are a lot of things that should happen, and and I think there are a lot of work that we can do.
Thank you, Shadi. Yes, I think it is important, as you said, the importance of the word lesbian, right, to be recognized. I just want to make a short introductions or yourself, so the people is with
yes,
us know who we are speaking with. Shadi Amin is a pioneer and influential Iranian LGBTI activist and this coordinator of Iranian Lesbian and Transgender network named Six Arang. And also she's ILGA-Asia Co-Chair and currently living in Germany. Thank you very much, Shadi. I want to jump right away asking the same question. I will do it in both languages so we can spare some time, and then Barbara will still help me with it. Imara, bienvenida. Imara Larga Espada es una lesbiana feminista, es exiliada política, migrante y refugiada. Ella fundó un grupo de mujeres lesbianas en Nicaragua llamado Artemisa en el año 2008, cuando en Nicaragua todavía se consideraba, se criminalizaba la homosexualidad. So I will say it now in English. And Imara Larga Espada is a lesbian, feminist, political exile, migrant, and refugee. She founded a lesbian group called Artemisa in Nicaragua in 2008, while homosexuality was still being criminalized. Now she lives as a refugee in Spain. So Imara, I wanted to ask you the same question. What does being the term of lesbian refugee means and signifies to you? So Imara, bienvenida, gracias otra vez. Y lo que quiero preguntarte y que nos comentes es ¿qué significa para vos el término de el ser una lesbiana refugiada o el término lesbiana refugiada? ¿Qué significa para vos?
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Simara. Soy una mujer lesbiana, activista, política y refugiada actualmente. Tengo 1 año y medio de haberme exiliado en España. Para mí es muy importante participar en estos espacios. Cuando yo salí de mi país, realmente yo no pensé nunca en que iba a ser refugiada. La verdad es que solamente quería salir con mi familia. Yo salí desde hace 1 año y medio con mi familia y con mis 2 hijos.
Perdón,
Uno
Imara.
de... ¿Aló?
Hola,
¿Sí?
soy Bárbara. Si me permitís, voy traduciendo mientras vas conversando, así no pierdo nada de los elementos que tú decís, ¿te parece?
Dale. Voy
Gracias.
haciendo pausa.
Sí, muchas gracias. Hi, I am Mara. I'm a lesbian activist. I'm a political woman. I get out half a year ago from my country and now live in Spain. And it's very important for me to participate in this space because when I left my country half a year ago, I didn't thought that I will be doing this and facing this situation. Then, gracias.
Cuando solo mi familia y yo, cuando quisimos salir de del país, teníamos una persecución política por ser lesbiana, por estar en contra de la crisis sociopolítica en Nicaragua. El término refugiada para mí es otra etiqueta más que me genera un estigma. Aquí en España el término refugiada pierde el sentir como persona, ya dejas de ser persona y te convertís en Imara la refugiada. Y para mí eso me ha bloqueado totalmente como defensora de derechos humanos, porque realmente yo busco cómo luchar por todos estos estigmas. Antes en mi país luchaba por la visibilidad lésbica, por el reconocimiento a la familia, pero ahora al llegar aquí a España, pues es otra lucha, la lucha del racismo, la lucha de que no te llamen, de no cargar con el estigma de ser refugiada.
Gracias. When I left my country, I did it with my family, my wife and my children. And I had to do it because I was facing a political crisis in my country and I was facing persecution because of my political commitment. And I was fighting against the discrimination because of sexual orientation over there. But when I came here, I found out that being a refugee is another layer of discrimination, of stigma. And when you are a refugee over here, you are lost the sense of being a human being. And now you are just Imara the refugee and not Imara the person. And here I found out that there is another layer of the fight. Now I have to face racism. Now I have to fight it again. Not just the discrimination because of being a lesbian woman with my family, but because I'm a refugee and I have to fight every single day to not be just one stigma.
Dejar de ser todo, dejar de ser quien eres, lo que estudias, dejar, y es injusto porque hay una buena intención detrás de la lucha de los refugiados.
Imara, sorry, I will jump in. Imara, discúlpame.
Hay iniciativas que ayudan a los refugiados, pero se ven opacados.
Si querés, voy a tener que pedirte nuevamente que apagues la cámara porque se ralentiza el audio y no podemos escucharte. I was just asking to Imara if she can turn off her camera. She's currently living in a refugee center, and that's why her signal is not that okay. So I hope we can all understand that situation. Gracias, Imara. Perdón, continúa y con esto terminamos tu intervención. Adelante.
Actualmente me encuentro yo en un programa de la Cruz Roja con mi familia y esto nos obliga a nosotras a cargar el estigma de refugiada. Y esto es muy importante porque ya la lucha lésbica, de la visibilidad lésbica, yo pongo mi banderita de arcoíris a todo, porque el programa de refugiados es que te mueven de un lugar a otro, sin importar pues que realmente camines con maletas y todo, o sea, andas tu casa totalmente en maleta. Y entonces esto genera de que dentro de este espacio del programa vos querés visibilidad, vos querés crear visibilidad lésbica, pero es un poco, se dificulta mucho el proceso de entre la lucha de ser lesbiana y ser refugiada. Gracias.
Nowadays, I'm in a program with the Red Cross with my family, and we are with the burden of being with our luggage every single day, with the whole life in a luggage right now. Now I'm struggling the life of being the fight of being a refugee, but even then, the lesbian flag for me, it doesn't go away. So I try to put my rainbow flag wherever I am, and try to create visibility wherever I am, wherever this new house is, because there's no other way to make it visible to me. I'm still fighting the fight of being a refugee, being dignified as a woman refugee here, but without losing my sense of knowing that I'm also a lesbian woman. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Imara. So now we will listen to Salima, who is an LGBTI rights expert from the MENA region, and she is an affiliated journalist of AGL in France. So please, Salima, welcome once again. And if you please could share with us what's for you, what does the term lesbian refugee signify, or how you envision that from your perspective.
Hi again, and thank you for the invite. So first of all, I'm not a refugee. I'm an expat living in France, where I work as a journalist. I come from the Middle East, and as you said, I'm affiliated to the French Association for LGBTI Journalists. But for sure, I know I left my country of origin, fleeing a homophobic culture, looking for acceptance and safety elsewhere, and looking forward to live my life as a lesbian, as an out lesbian without fear. Even though it breaks my heart to have to lead double life, one life where I'm totally out to French acquaintances, and another where I have to hide parts of who I am so I can please my loved ones at home. It's painful, and to me this is only a small part of what I can imagine a lesbian refugee would feel. But I can only imagine that, and I can only imagine how much harder it can be for lesbian refugees and lesbian asylum seeker. And I only have respect for you ladies. It takes lots of courage to do that.
Thank you, Salima, indeed. And finally, we will hear for the first time our last guest and speaker, who is Maha Youssef. She is active for more than 10 years advocating for LGBTI rights in Egypt before moving to Amsterdam in 2015. She's also a co-founder of CHAC Group in the Netherlands. So welcome, Maha. And again, please share with us your thoughts about being a lesbian refugee.
Yeah, well, hi everyone. It's really good to be with you. Well, being a lesbian refugee, it definitely is a very hard thing. Having to leave your community, your country, your family, your everything, and just move to another place where you are basically a stranger. You don't know anyone. You don't have a support system. you're a minority, you're a POC person, you're a lesbian, you're a refugee. So it's definitely one of the hardest thing anyone can do. I think that the problem sometimes when it comes to lesbian refugees, for example, I do feel I am privileged sometimes because being active in your own country and having this privilege of understanding your sexuality, understanding your political views, understand like being an active fighting for the cause. Sometimes it can be a privilege to understand that, which sometimes really facilitate the asylum procedures, because for immigration services sometimes you have more evidence about your sexuality, unlike a lot of the majority of lesbian refugees who have to go a lot in like through a very long process just to prove who they are or just to understand who they are. They constantly live in fear in asylum centers, as most of them, they do come with their families and they don't have the privilege of coming out even in their new countries, in their new communities. It's very hard for them, as even in Europe, which is supposed to be an open-minded society, even in Europe, we barely find places that can be considered safe spaces for lesbians. So it is definitely a very hard thing to be done, and it can result in a lot of problems, especially mentally for lesbian women. And yeah, it's it is hard. It is difficult.
Yes, thank you, Maha. Indeed, we can all relate to that struggle. And just to move forward in the conversation, I mean, it is for us, and while we were organizing this session, it was always the aim that it was led by refugees. We have achieved it, so I'm really happy about it. But also, we want to have this other perspective, as I said from the beginning. So that's why I want to ask you, how did you manage to find the resilience to become a lesbian refugee grassroots leaders? Exactly because just what you just said, which is being in a new way in a new country with new community, um, for us is very impressive, your power and your of creation and the leadership you have developed. So could you walk us through that process, how you managed to achieve that?
Yeah, well, again, I do consider myself privileged to be able uh, to 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 identify myself, to have peace with my identification for myself. And I do believe that at some point each person within the LGBTI spectrum is actually an activist in heart. So whenever they find the right place to practice their activism, it's always very creative. It's always very powerful. Um, for me, because I was already active in my own country when I moved to the Netherlands, it was easy to point out the problems that the LGBT community in general is facing in the Netherlands. And especially for the refugee community, where you don't find any safe space for them. In the refugee camps, it's usually a very homophobic environment. A lot of people are not able to actually be themselves when they are out. They normally get abused physically and mentally and verbally, and it's not safe for them in the camps, as also the people who are in charge of the camps, who are supposed to protect those people, they really don't do anything to protect them. When it comes to the minorities within the LGBT community, or if we're talking about lesbians and trans people, for an example, it's very hard for them to express their identity. A lot of lesbians, they do come with their families. A lot of them were forced to get married in their own countries, and they do have children, and which make it very hard for them to prove that they are lesbian or being granted asylum. And even if they got lucky and they were granted asylum, when they are trying to integrate in their new communities, it's hard for them to find spaces, as most of the spaces are male dominated. Most of the spaces are not welcoming refugees. Even like if we're talking about like the Netherlands or Amsterdam where I'm living, we don't actually have lesbian bars, for an example. And even within the lesbian white communities, they are not welcoming refugees. They're not welcoming trans lesbians, for an example. So there are a lot of issues that's going on, and when you see those issues, you have to do something. And this is how SOHAC was born, because SOHAC now as a grassroots organization in the Netherlands, our main goal is to actually create the safe space for queer refugees in general, but with more focus on lesbian and trans refugees.
Yes, indeed, the job is amazing what you're doing, your work, and I can relate as well what you just said, that it isn't a given to be in welcome in your new communities, and that's why I think your capacity to become a new leader, like keep moving forward with your leaderships from your country of origin, is something that is really amazing. And sometimes this leadership or these efforts that a lot of refugee lesbian around Europe made, they don't have any space to be discussed. And I want to jump into Salima and ask her about this, and since she's an expert on LGBTI rights, being a journalist coming from the Middle East and being a journalist who analyzed the coverage of LGBT refugees, what are your impression of the coverage of the passing of Sarah Hegazi first, and also regarding about the lesbian refugees realities, both in the West and in the Middle East? Thank you, Salima.
Thank you. Of course, so the passing of Sarah Hegazi received wide press coverage in the West. So her passing was reported among other examples in the New York Times, the Washington Post in the USA. There was also CBC in Canada, in France, France Inter, Libération, France Info. So these are examples, so just to cite a few. However, in the Middle East and in North Africa, respectful press coverage almost always comes from new independent online news outlets rather than traditional news media. These new websites were created in the wake of the Arab Spring and the many revolutions that took place and still are in the MENA region. So to cite a few again, there are Mada Masr in Egypt, the New Arab and the Middle East Eye, which are based in London. There are also Racif 22 and Megaphone in Lebanon. So they all published articles where they paid tribute to Sarah Hegazi, and hopefully they'll keep up the good job and keep alive the memory of Sarah Hegazi. After all, she was a hero who fought not only for queer rights, but for all human rights in every Arab country. She fought against all dictatorships. Sadly, it wasn't really the case for mainstream Arabic-speaking media, which are typically homophobic. They go for clickbait titles and shocking content, where queer people are dehumanized, their gender identity and sexuality are scrutinized, they're outed. Basically, they're turned into villains in order to attract as big of a viewership as possible. And in the case of Sarah Hegazi specifically, some of these disrespectful titles focused on the fact that at some point in her life, she was wearing a hijab before taking it off, which is taboo by itself, as well as suicide. Suicide is haram in Islam, meaning it's prohibited in Islam. And so Arab mainstream media, as I could notice, they capitalized on that to attract readers. What's worst is that mainstream traditional media in the Arab world, they get the biggest viewership, especially from the older generation, and they get to perpetuate homophobic ideas and beliefs without being criticized by any authority. So they don't educate people on LGBTI issues at all. Now, as for Western media, what's heartbreaking is that usually they only talk about queer refugees when something bad, really bad, happens to them. An example for this, so there's a journalist who works at CBC in Canada. Her name is Joyita Sengupta, and she wrote on Twitter that after learning of Sarah Hegazi's death, she felt like she failed her, and then she proceeds to explain why. So here's why. She says that she interviewed Sarah Hegazi in November 28, but could never get to publish her story. After Sarah Hegazi took her own life, the same old interview was finally published by CBC in the form of a sort of exclusive video, right? So editorial priorities meant in this case that they had to wait for a breaking story to finally talk about a lesbian refugee who went through a lot, even before her death. So why Western media make these choices? I can only assume they do so because they're not LGBT media and they don't want to sound too activist-like. So that's my theory. Otherwise, I need to say this: it's that Sarah Hegazi was one of many queer refugees who are in great suffering and whose stories never get to be told in the media. And I can't really see why their stories are not as important or as impactful, if not more, than political and business stories that got front page and TV time in mainstream media. Now, another example, and this time it's coming from North Africa. So it's Egypt's only independent media, Mada Masr, as I cited earlier. In 2018, Sarah Hegazi published her own story on their website in Arabic. And Mada Masr, they have an English language website where they publish translated articles. But sadly, they translated her story only a few days ago, after her death. So it's 2 years too late, in my opinion. I think that if it was done in time, this translation, maybe her story would have got the attention it deserved way earlier worldwide, and maybe the outcomes, only maybe, the outcomes would be different. But that we would never know. And make no mistakes, if there's one entity responsible for her death, it's the Egyptian government. I wouldn't say the press is responsible. It is the Egyptian government that killed Sarah Hegazi.
Yes, thank you very much, Salima, on your reflection on that. And I think that sadly, as you said, it's 2 years too late to tell Sarah's story. But for us that are still trying to struggle and to thrive, it is also a great commitment to keep her voice and her work out there. And also, I think that it is a very good reflection on how social media or traditional media cover news about LGBTI refugees in general, but being more specific about lesbian refugees, we read very little things about lesbian refugees and their struggles and realities, even though, as you just told us, they try to cover editorial mainstream. Sometimes, not sometimes, we can see, because of you just said, just refuse to put our story out. So thank you very much, Salima, on sharing this. I see that someone is raising their hand, and it's Shadi. Shadi, please. Sorry that I didn't acknowledge you. Please go ahead. Please remember your mic.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody. I think when we come to the case of Sarah Hegazi, we have an example from a lot of them. And we have we had in Canada, exactly Canada, which is the paradise of LGBT refugees. We see that after they arrive there, they will be accepted as refugee, but they live in the rand of the society. They don't live really. They are not involved in all the activities. They are not accepted. They have no support groups and all of these issues. And I think I want to say something about the press and media and all of these things. As I arrived in Germany, exactly 2 days later, I have the magazine from that time. The newspaper Taz, which is one of the important, or was at that time one of the most important newspaper at that time, they interviewed between two different issues, and they published it. But I think we are exotic for some media. We are exotic for them to write about us. But the approach is not to activate the people to support us. It's only telling a story that the people can sleep better. It's not about really to try to change something, and this approach should be changed. It's not, we can't change all the media. They have a really mechanism that we are not able to change it now, but we can make our own alternative media. And I think this is the point that we have to look at it, that we don't have refugee websites that are informative, that they have different languages, that really the refugees can read that, and to help them, give the addresses where they can go, how they can manage their problems, and how they can be part of the activities here in Europe or everywhere they go. So when we look at the problem with the refugees, lesbian refugees, we see that it has a lot of aspects. We have to look at it. One of them is that they are not aware about the possibilities here. They don't know that they will be let be alone without any support, and that they, as I think it was Imara or Maha said that was Maha. She said that it is hard. It's one of the hardest things you do as a refugee, to come to another country. And I can only confirm that I came alone here, and now I have my own apartment. I have my job. I have my friends, and I have my organization. I have my I can do and try to change a lot. But at that time, I needed only somebody who tells me that you can go to welfare, or you can go to the doctor. Here is this doctor, here you can have help. And these little things, these small things, these small activities, this is what's failed. This is what the lesbian refugees need to be part of the society when they come here, when they arrive a safe country. And we know that safe country is not really safe. And if you are a Black refugee, if you are a refugee from Africa, or all of these, and then you are lesbian too. So we have to look at these issues and try to change that. And I think we have a lot of work to do. So that's the situation, unfortunately.
Yes, indeed, Shadi, I think that is very important about networks, and we will discuss further about it, because it's also very, very important issue that we have to discuss about that. Thank you for the reflection, and I want now to invite Imara, if she could please share your experience during the asylum process as a lesbian wife and a mother of 2 children. So please, Imara, te pregunto, y quiero que nos acompañes también, porque tu visión es bastante, digamos, enriquecedora para nosotros, porque podemos tener entonces esta perspectiva de cómo ha sido tu proceso de asilo, siendo una mujer lesbiana, pero además siendo una esposa o compañera de otra mujer y madre de 2 hijos. Gracias.
Para mí ha sido muy importante el acompañamiento de las redes feministas. Nosotras entramos en Barcelona, España, y nosotras realmente no sabíamos nada cómo era el proceso de asilo. Teníamos un desconocimiento. Nosotras lo primero antes de salir es que contactamos a una organización que trabajaba con refugio LGBTIQ, y lo que nos orientó era cómo entrar como turista a España.
Voy, Imara. Para nosotras, con mi familia, fue muy importante tener el acompañamiento de una red de feministas. Cuando llegamos fue a Barcelona, España, y desconocíamos por completo cómo era el proceso de asilo. Nos dieron referencia a una organización que trabajaba con refugiados LGBTIQ, pero realmente nosotros desconocíamos qué hacer.
Ahí nos encontramos en esta organización LGBTIQ Refugio a una mujer lesbiana también, pero la cercanía no fue igual porque esta chica respondía a un trabajo organizativo, un trabajo de coordinación que estaba coordinado por un hombre homosexual, pero realmente nosotras en este proceso de asilo, como nosotras no sabíamos cómo era, tocábamos puertas y no era ahí, era otro lugar, entonces lo que hicimos fue, con este mismo desconocimiento, hacer como un aprendizaje para otras compañeras lesbianas o otras compañeras defensoras de derechos humanos que vinieran a solicitar asilo. Y nosotras, junto al apoyo que tuvimos con el Fondo Calala, hicimos una guía sobre nuestra misma experiencia de 10 consejos prácticos de cómo solicitar asilo. Y aparte de cómo solicitar asilo, también cómo solicitar el apoyo al programa social de refugio.
As I was telling you, we were referred to this organization that worked for refugee LGBTQI, and then we met one lesbian woman. However, the organization was coordinated by a gay man, and we did not have all the support that we wanted over there. So we kept knocking at doors. We kept pushing and see where it was possible for us to find an opportunity and what to do and what to say. So we decided that it was important for us to make a guideline of all the learning process that we went through with my family for other colleagues that were coming, another lesbian colleagues, another feminist colleagues, future refugee women that were looking for asylum or going through the refugee process. So together with the Fondo Calala, that's the name of the fund that they got support to, we developed a guide of how to apply for asylum, but also 10 steps of how to go through life in this moment of uncertainty.
Quisiera mencionar rapidito esto. Desde que salís de tu país, traes una mochila de duelos, de dolores, de dejar a tu familia. A nosotras nadie nos despidió en el aeropuerto porque nosotras, como veníamos perseguida política, tuvimos que salir así, de un día para otro. No traíamos mucha maleta, no traíamos ropa, veníamos con 2 niños y para nosotras fue una experiencia muy difícil porque no solamente no solamente era salir de tu país, sino que te venías a encontrar aquí a buscar cómo sobrevivir porque no tenías el dinero se nos acabó, nos quedamos de calle y tuvimos que entrar al programa el programa social de refugiados y pues desde hace 1 año y medio estamos en este programa esperando nuestra solicitud de asilo, nos den respuesta a nuestra solicitud de asilo. Ha sido un proceso bien difícil porque te encontrás en tu imaginario, crees de que al venir a España te encontrás de que aceptan a la comunidad LGBTIQ, pero te encontrás con algunas rupturas de que con personas de que no aceptan a las mujeres lesbianas y también con el tema de refugiados también es otro peso muy importante de que cargas un estigma totalmente difícil. Estás entre luchando con la sobrevivencia, estás luchando porque estás aquí en España, pero también estás en tu país y también esto dificulta también el estado de ánimo de cada una, dificulta también el querer que tus hijos estén bien. Viniste buscando una felicidad para tus hijos, un bienestar para tus hijos, porque en Nicaragua ya no podían estar, porque era salir y luchar contra todo, pues, y igual estuvimos en una casa de refugio ahí en Nicaragua y fue muy difícil, pues, para nuestros hijos. Y el venir aquí y encontrarnos con lo mismo también dificulta y que ellos carguen con otro estigma de ser refugiados también es una parte muy dolorosa porque realmente no queríamos estar de esta manera, pero realmente nos obligan las circunstancias.
Gracias. Imara shares, when you get out of the country, you get out wearing a backpack of pain, of grief. Nobody went to say goodbye to us at the airport because we were facing persecution, so we had to fly within 1 day. We were coming with 2 children. Since we did not prepare anything, we had no money, so we were left on the street when we came here. So we need to apply for this possibility with the organization, and we have been waiting for a refugee status from 1.5 years already. It's a very difficult process. It's a very hard process. You think that when you come to Europe, people will embrace sexual diversity, they will understand and they will celebrate it or embrace it or at least respect it. But you realize that no, that a lot of people do not accept it, that a lot of people do not understand it. And it is very hard to deal with the stigma of now being a refugee. Having the mood, the emotional status that you were having because of this hard process is even harder when you have children, because you want your children to be okay, you want them to be safe. We understood that in Nicaragua it was not safe for them to be, however, we want them to be happy. And coming here and now facing the stigma of being a refugee, it's very painful for us as mothers to see, to watch them, to understand that now they have to walk on their lives with that stigma as well.
Gracias, Bárbara, y gracias, Imara, por compartirnos esta experiencia tuya con estas 3 perspectivas. I just was a thank you to Imara because she has shared this whole perspective, being a lesbian, a mother, and having 2 children during the asylum process. I think we can see how the system, as Shadi said earlier, is not ready to same-sex partners when same-sex partners are 2 women, and also our children during the process, how do they face it, but also our mental health. And I think that through this almost an hour that we have been having the conversation, it seems that the importance not only of having a network, which we will discuss further, but also about having information out there that Shadi has go to it so many times. So Shadi, I want to follow up the conversation with you. And how will you compare your experience of becoming a lesbian refugee in Europe during the 80s with, for example, Imara's experience, we just heard?
So I think generally is the situation maybe easier when you come now because of the internet. You have access to more information than at that time. But I think, as I said before, it's not the only thing you need to know. For example, is an organization in Hamburg who is helping 2 lesbian people. The problem is when you come to the safe country, you have a lot of damages from the way to come here, from your life in your country because of the homophobic situation or every other political situation or war or all of these issues. You come here and you have no power to organize yourself. It is the reason why I said the refugee groups, the lesbian groups, they should reach out to the lesbian refugees in their, for example, camps or centers for refugees. So and to show them that they are trustable. There are a lot of other problems that when you have a lot of damages, traumas, and all of these things, and you come here and a white woman, a straight woman comes to you from the church or other institutions, and they want to help you, you can't trust them. So that's why a lot of lesbians, as when we see that a lot of them, they ask for refugee under other aspects. They don't even say that they are lesbians. This is one thing. And the other thing is that some of them, we know that in Iranian community, some of them, they want to have the privilege to live here. What I use the word privilege, but please don't understand me wrong. So to be able to live here, and on other hand, they want to be able to travel to the country. So that's why what I politically reject, and I can't accept it, because if you are a refugee and you use the refugee status, then you have to accept that you said that your life is in danger in your country. You can't not show your face, not come and be involved in the activities, and not try to change the world. How we want to change the world? We have to risk our life. It is the reality. We see that only to say that you exist can bring your life in danger, and we can't stay and look at this situation. We have to change that, and to change that, it means to come in the front. And some of the people who, I mean, to live here in the same situation as you lived in your country, it means hidden. It means not showing your wishes, not going to follow your own life, and not to have a partner, maybe to marry a man here. It means you didn't change. You changed the place, and you follow the same policy of your family, of your tradition, of your religion, and all of this. This is why I think the education of the lesbian refugees is really important, to give them the power to be to separate themselves from all this mechanism, social mechanism, and to feel powerful, to go for their own wishes and their life. So
yes, thank you, Shadi. Definitely, I completely get what you're saying, and the importance of giving the lesbian refugees the power is also, it is so attached and so close to the fact to being educated and have the correct information to go not only through the asylum process, which is hard itself because of the mechanisms each country used, but also about the process and the way that impacts you, right? We have heard from Imara, for example, that she said it's like you disappear. You're not any longer a human being. So I think that is we have been having a great conversation regarding our struggles, what things have empowered us. And one key element that I wanted to stress out while we are talking about this is also about networks. We have been discussing a lot of it. So I want to start by asking Maha, which lesbian networks or groups in Europe or in your host country has been your strongest ally to allow you to build the resilience and strength to keep being a leader in your new host community?
Well, if we're talking about lesbian organizations, well, actually, I haven't met any lesbian organizations, especially white. I don't think they do that.
Yeah.
The only people who can give you power is your own community. People that you know, people that you depend on, people that you feel related to. Your community is actually the only place where you can find strength and where you can find safety. But if we're talking about lesbian organizations, I don't think that even exists.
Okay, great. I mean, that's a very powerful thing to say, right? That we, even in this new environment that it is supposed to be safe, as Shadi said, our friendly new countries, it is hard to relate on a lesbian level activism. So I would like that someone else jump in, and if you have any experience of having a network or groups that are lesbian groups in Europe that have helped us, not only in the sense that give you help or direct support, but also just as Shadi said, giving you the power. So someone of you experienced that while you were starting your new refugee life?
So for me was the Beijing conference at that time, really the point that I thought, no, I don't want to live hidden. I don't want to let the society to decide for my life and to go my way. But it was only the time that I saw 28,000 women from all over the world. They are talking about every issues that is related to their life. And I saw a demonstration for lesbian groups from all over the world in the streets of Beijing at that time. And I felt I can't stay there when the others are thousands meters in front of me. I have to follow them and come in the front of them. And I did it. So I started, and I think we shouldn't forget that to be active, to follow the activism policy, to try to organize something is really related to be updated about the new theories of in the world, because we are facing with them all the time. So for example, I know maybe Salima can confirm that too, that it is a discussion about how the safe country institutions try to use the lesbian community as a sign for their image and to show that they are really better it is the better word, for example, in France. And they forget that they have in the Rand of Paris, exactly there, even the people who are not refugee, they live about 3 generations in Paris. But in this community, the lesbian people have no right to show their identity. When a woman will be stoned in Paris, when we have this story, how we want to talk about the people who come from other countries and are refugees. I mean, the world has a lot of problems and a lot of injustice, and this is a part of it, and we should see all these issues related together. So otherwise, we can't have a solution for only one problem, because you can't solve it without looking at other issues too. And the racism is one of the issues, and I think raising the issue against feminism, against women's rights. These all issues are really important things that we have to look at it when we talk about refugees, lesbian refugees. As Maha said, it is hard to work on that. And that's why we need the organizations who are solidarious with us, who can support us. For example, General Refugee Organization, or a radical organization who are against homophobic and racist ideas here in these countries. They can help us, and then we can build a movement where we can talk on, as a topic about the lesbian existence in the refugee community.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Shadi. I want to just mention a couple of comments that we are having through Facebook Live and also in the chat here. One of the first issues that Runda mentioned, it's about also the acknowledging of trans lesbian women and struggles that we do need to bring them into the frame of these realities that we are living. And also she expressed the thing about transphobia and xenophobia as part of experience of a trans lesbian refugee. Also in Facebook Live, someone is mentioning what we just all you said, guys, about how our knowledge and experience is not taken into account in some spaces, precisely because we need to be. And now, while we were discussing all these things, I think that and I can include myself of it, of what you said. What drive us and what drive us to become these leaders or keeping us alive is exactly the vacuum that exists regarding to having in a space where we feel that we are part of a community. So since we have a lack of it, we try to create it. And in that sense, I completely agree with Shadi regarding that we do need allies, not to take us by the hand and learn with us how to walk, but more in the sense that they do acknowledge our contributions, and in that sense, we can all move forward. I want to open the floor for a couple of minutes. We still have some. If one of the speakers want to mention or try to deliver some specific message, it will be really important for me in the last couple of minutes of the conversation. If you want to do so, it will be really important. I will say the same in Spanish just to Imara to understand. So Imara, si hay algún mensaje o algo que querrá decir para el cierre del espacio, este es un buen momento para que lo puedas hacer.
Sí, yo lo que quería compartir es algo que dijo Shadi y difiero mucho en ella. Decía que hay que reconocer la importancia del refugio, de estar viva, pero también refugio por encima de la dignidad de las personas, no estoy de acuerdo, porque fue lo que le pasó a la compañera activista egipcia. Ella ya estaba en el exilio y mata también todas las pasa, mata también todo lo que vive, mata, encuentran, que es lo que ha pasado en mi persona. Yo realmente he buscado organizaciones de mujeres lesbianas refugiadas y lo que encuentro son organizaciones que trabajan con refugio LGBT y que están dominadas por hombres y que realmente esa es una realidad. Y por eso es que desde esa necesidad yo desde aquí he buscado cómo organizar un grupo pequeño de mujeres lesbianas refugiadas. Y pues yo te pudiera decir desde mi experiencia como refugiada, yo he recibido ayuda, claro que sí he recibido ayuda, pero ha pasado por encima de mi dignidad y he tenido que dejar mi activismo a un lado por la necesidad de mis hijos, por la necesidad de que me den un techo y una comida y la comida. Entonces es muy importante reconocer que no solo basta por salir del país para estar viva, también existe sobrevivir y luchar aquí, es otra lucha. El sobrevivir aquí es otra lucha. Estás sola, deja tu casa abandonada, deja tu familia, deja tu activismo a un lado y querés buscar redes de apoyo aquí para continuar con tu activismo y es muy difícil. Y esto es muy importante decir, pues, claro, el refugio es muy importante, ese refugio es muy importante y las oportunidades que te brinda España, claro que sí, pero también la ayuda tiene que ser en base a la dignidad de las personas, en base a derechos humanos. Gracias.
Gracias, Imara. Bárbara, porfa.
Yeah. Imara says, I recognize the importance of being acknowledged as a refugee. However, I do understand that it's important that non-status of refugee is above the dignity of a human being. I have also tried to contact organizations for LGBTI refugee support, and they are coordinated by mail. Sorry, I got my mic. So that's been trying to look for how to organize a small group of lesbian refugees. I do recognize that I have received support. I appreciate the support that I have received, but I also understand that sometimes I have to let my dignity aside and my activism aside just for having a roof over my head and my children's head and for having food on my children's plate. And I have had to let aside my dignity as a human being, but also my struggle as an activist, my human rights. You need to understand that you are alone here and you need to fight, but you cannot let aside that you left everything behind, that you left your family, your house, your possessions, who you were, but also sometimes you left aside in the country that you were, your activism. So being a refugee and having the support as a refugee, it is important, yes, but no, not without the recognition and the acknowledgement of your human rights and your human dignity.
Yes, thank you very much. Any other speaker? I want to invite you just to give all your final thoughts about the conversation. Please, Shadi, go.
Sorry, I have told you before that I have only time for 1 hour, but the discussion was so interesting I couldn't leave it on time. But now I have to leave, and I want to ask you for apologize because
don't worry.
yeah, I have no time today, and sorry about that. I have to leave.
Don't worry. Thank you very much for being here.
Having me there. I learn from every position that I hear and every discussion. Thank you, Ma. Thank you, Salima, and thank you, Imara. Thank you, Leila, and all of our other friends who have worked on this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shadi. We're about to close as well. Thank you very much for your inputs. Are very important.
Merci.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Merci, thank you.
Thank you. Maha and Shadi, your final thoughts about this reflection that we were having, if you want to share with us.
Are you talking to me?
Sorry to Salima. Sorry.
Yes, I think you were
okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
I only wanted to thank Shadi for what she said earlier about lesbian refugees being portrayed in the media as if they were some exotic beings. This is very true. In France, the French Association for LGBTI Journalists, well, we're keeping a close eye on such writings in the media, and we do our best to talk about it either between ourselves or on social media and try to educate the media about those issues. But also, I'd like to point out the work of the Human Rights Watch because they report a lot about LGBTI issues in the Arab world and also about LGBTI refugees. They do it better than the actual Arab media in some cases. So yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Salima. Maha, please.
Yeah, I want to thank everyone who was here today. It was a pleasure to get to know all of you. But I think another point that should be discussed for later, and something that lesbians in Europe who are active in their own community need to focus on, is the fact that within the lesbian refugee community, there are a lot of people who are either active in their own countries or are starting to be activists in their new communities. But the problem is that there's a lack of resources for them to start their own initiative and to work on their own projects, especially when it comes to funding, where we see that most of the fundings and most of the projects are more targeted to the mainstream movement and to male-dominated movements as well. So I think in order to make a difference within the society, in order to make the struggle of lesbian refugees more visible, we need to start to be very supportive for them, to give them all kind of resources that they need to carry on with their initiatives and projects.
Okay, yes. Yes, thank you very much. Indeed, funding is a very important part of it. And of course, we have a lot of things that we have to discuss. It is important also to acknowledge that within Europe, a lot of lesbian refugees are from eastern countries of Europe, Central Asia, part of Europe. So it is important for us also to bear with that subject in that conversation that we haven't got the chance today to discuss. I want to thank very much to the speakers that have made time for us today. Gracias, Imara, especialmente para vos, porque sé que estás invirtiendo de alguna manera en estar en este espacio desde el centro. Gracias por acompañarnos. I just thank Imara because I know she's actually putting some money to be here because she's using her connection, personal connection, to be with us, and I know that's a great struggle as a refugee. Thank you everyone here. Also, I want to thank especially Barbara for her translation into English and Spanish during part of the sessions. And for the ELC, I want to thank you because you are always open to discuss topics around lesbians and give us the space to have a great conversation with great lesbian activists and refugees in this case today. I want to thank everyone that has been with us during the last hour, hearing us through Facebook Live. Thank you very much to be with us, and please share the video. It's very important. The video will be uploaded in our ELC page. So thank you very much for the ones that join us through Facebook Live and the ones that are here in Zoom as well. I hope this is not the last time that we will discuss around lesbian refugee issues. Thank you very much and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Gracias.